June 5, 1944. 11:58 p.m. RAF Harwell Airfield, Oxfordshire, England. The engines begin to roar, one after another. Hundreds of transport aircraft shudder to life beneath a moon hidden behind thick clouds. The propellers slice through the damp English air, shaking the earth beneath the boots of thousands of young men standing shoulder to shoulder. No one speaks above a whisper. Cigarettes burn silently in trembling hands. Somewhere in the darkness, a chaplain finishes his final prayer. This is not another training exercise. Within the next few hours, history will change forever. Private First Class John Steele tightens the strap beneath his chin. His parachute feels impossibly heavy, almost crushing his shoulders. Sweat trickles down his back despite the cool night. Around him, fellow paratroopers from the 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions check each other's equipment one final time. Faces are painted black. Helmets are covered in camouflage netting. Every man carries nearly 40 kilograms of weapons, ammunition, explosives, food, and hope. Some quietly write letters they know may never be delivered, others stare into nothing. Because everyone understands the same terrifying truth. By sunrise, thousands of them will already be dead. Far across the English Channel, the coast of Normandy sleeps beneath an uneasy silence. German sentries patrol concrete bunkers overlooking the beaches. Machine guns rest inside steel embrasures aimed toward the empty sea. Massive artillery batteries stand ready. Rows upon rows of wooden stakes, steel hedgehogs, and underwater mines wait patiently beneath the rising tide. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel has spent months transforming France into what Adolf Hitler proudly calls the Atlantic Wall, a fortress stretching thousands of kilometers from Norway to Spain. Rommel believes only one thing: if the Allies reach the beaches, Germany loses the war. And tonight, somewhere beyond the darkness, an invasion fleet unlike anything humanity has ever assembled is already moving. More than 5,000 ships, nearly 11,000 aircraft, over 150,000 soldiers, an armada so enormous that sailors later say the sea itself seemed to disappear beneath steel. Yet almost none of the German commanders believe Normandy will be the real target. They are convinced the invasion will strike farther north at Pas-de-Calais, the shortest route across the Channel. Allied deception has worked perfectly. Fake tanks, inflatable aircraft, false radio traffic, even an entirely imaginary army commanded by General George S. Patton has convinced German intelligence that Normandy is merely a distraction. But deception alone cannot win this night. The men climbing aboard the waiting C-47 Skytrains know that. As engines thunder louder, red lights illuminate the cramped interiors of each aircraft. Metal floors vibrate beneath heavy boots. The smell of fuel mixes with canvas, oil, and nervous sweat. Lieutenant Richard Winters looks across his platoon. Nobody smiles. Some stare at photographs tucked inside helmet liners. Others grip rosary beads until their knuckles turn white. One soldier quietly asks another, "Think we'll make it home?" The answer never comes, because neither man truly believes it. At exactly midnight, the first aircraft begins rolling down the runway. Then another, then another. Within minutes, hundreds of planes stretch across the night sky in endless formation, their navigation lights disappearing into thick cloud. Below them, the English countryside fades into darkness. Ahead lies occupied Europe. Inside each aircraft, silence grows heavier. Every bump of turbulence reminds them what waits below: German anti-aircraft guns, searchlights, machine guns, and the terrifying possibility of landing miles away from friendly forces. The success of the largest amphibious invasion in history depends upon these airborne troops. Their mission is simple to describe, almost impossible to accomplish: capture bridges, destroy artillery, block German reinforcements, hold until dawn. No matter the cost, hours pass. The Channel disappears beneath black water. Pilots struggle to maintain formation through gathering clouds. Navigation becomes increasingly difficult. Strong winds begin pushing aircraft off course then. The first flashes appear on the horizon. Anti-aircraft fire. German flak batteries have awakened. Within seconds, the peaceful darkness explodes into violent bursts of orange and black. Shells detonate among the incoming aircraft. Fragments tear through wings and fuselages. Entire formations scatter. Inside one C-47, bullets rip through the aluminum skin with a deafening metallic scream. The cabin lights flicker. Someone begins praying aloud. Another vomits into his helmet, then the jumpmaster stands. He hooks his static line, looks toward the door, and shouts the words every airborne soldier has feared and anticipated for months. Stand up. Metal benches slam upward. Hundreds of men struggle beneath the weight of their equipment. Up. Static lines snap into overhead cables. Each click echoes through the aircraft like the ticking of a clock counting down to fate. The red light still glows. Outside, nothing but darkness. The aircraft rocks violently as flak bursts dangerously close. A wing catches fragments. The engine coughs, smoke begins trailing behind. The pilot refuses to turn back, not tonight. The formation presses onward through exploding shells. Suddenly, the red light changes green, the door bursts open. An icy wind tears through the cabin with hurricane force. The roar is deafening, one by one. The paratroopers disappear into the black void over Normandy. Many have no idea where they are. Many will never land anywhere near their intended drop zones. Some will descend directly into flooded fields, others into church steeples, some into the middle of German headquarters. Within minutes, the carefully planned invasion begins descending into chaos, and on the ground below, German soldiers, awakened by the distant drone of engines, step outside their bunkers and look toward the night sky. At first they think they're seeing rain, then they realize the sky itself is falling. The first parachutes opened just after 1:00 a.m. on June 6, 1944 against the black Norman sky. Thousands of white canopies blossomed like ghostly flowers. But nothing looked the way it had during training. Thick clouds had scattered the formations. Violent crosswinds carried men miles from their assigned drop zones. Pilots, desperate to escape German anti-aircraft fire, released their paratroopers too early or too late. Instead of organized companies landing together, small groups, and sometimes single soldiers, fell into complete darkness. Private John Steele never saw the church tower until it was too late. As his parachute drifted over St. Miraglais, machine gun tracers climbed into the night. German soldiers below fired wildly at the descending Americans. Steele tried desperately to steer away, but the wind refused to cooperate then. His parachute snagged the stone church steeple. He hung there helplessly, suspended nearly 20 meters above the square. Below him, the battle had already begun. Unable to free himself, Steele made a decision that probably saved his life. He played dead. For nearly 2 hours, from his impossible perch, he watched bullets rip through the streets beneath him. American paratroopers landed directly into firefights. German soldiers searched house after house. Wounded men screamed for medics who could not reach them. Every minute felt like an hour. Every sound echoed through the silent village, and Steele could do nothing except watch history unfold beneath his dangling boots. Elsewhere, the confusion was even worse. Lieutenant Richard Winters landed far from his assigned objective. Around him, only a handful of men emerged from the darkness. Instead of the nearly 100 soldiers he expected, he counted fewer than a dozen. No radios, no maps, no idea where the rest of Easy Company had landed. Many officers faced exactly the same nightmare. Entire battalions had been scattered across dozens of kilometers. Paratroopers wandered through hedgerows searching for familiar voices. Sometimes they found Americans, sometimes they found Germans. The Norman countryside became a deadly maze. Unlike open fields, Normandy was divided by ancient hedgerows, thick walls of earth covered with tangled bushes and centuries-old trees. Some stood over 3 meters high. Visibility was often limited to only a few meters. Every corner could hide an ambush. Every field could become a trap. German patrols moved cautiously through the darkness. Equally confused, they had expected commandos, not thousands of airborne troops appearing everywhere at once. Reports flooded headquarters. Enemy parachutists near Cairnton. Americans attacking bridges. Paratroopers in St. Miraglais. Enemy behind our lines. No one could determine the invasion's true scale. For German commanders, the situation seemed impossible. How many had landed? 500, 5,000, 50,000. Nobody knew. The confusion became the Allies' greatest weapon. Many American soldiers had landed so far from their objectives that they improvised entirely new missions. A group of 8 paratroopers captured nearly 60 German soldiers simply because the Germans believed a much larger force surrounded them. Another isolated squad destroyed telephone lines connecting German headquarters. One machine gun team accidentally blocked an entire road, delaying reinforcements for hours. Even mistakes were creating opportunities. Then came one of the night's most remarkable actions. Near Brecourt Manor, Lieutenant Richard Winters discovered 4 German 105mm artillery guns firing toward Utah Beach. Those guns threatened thousands of Allied soldiers who would soon land from the sea. Winters had only 12 men. The Germans defending the position numbered several times that. Waiting for reinforcements wasn't an option. He attacked immediately. Using fire and movement learned through relentless training, Winters led his tiny force through trenches one section at a time. Grenades exploded inside bunkers. Rifle fire echoed across the fields. Machine guns opened up from hidden positions. One gun fell, then another, then a third. Finally, the 4th artillery piece was destroyed. The assault lasted only minutes. Military academies around the world would later study it as one of the finest examples of small unit tactics in modern warfare. But at that moment, it was simply survival. Farther west, another silent battle unfolded beneath the surface of rivers and canals. British airborne troops carrying gliders had been assigned one of the most dangerous missions of the night: capture 2 vital bridges. If they failed, German armored divisions could counterattack the beaches before the invasion force secured a foothold. Unlike parachutes, gliders had no engines, no second chances, only one landing. Pulled across the channel by bombers, the wooden aircraft were released in darkness. The pilots had nothing but instinct, maps, and extraordinary skill. The first glider descended almost silently. Seconds later, its landing gear smashed into the ground at nearly 100 kilometers per hour. Wood shattered. Men were thrown violently forward. The glider slid to a stop less than 50 meters from Pegasus Bridge, exactly where it needed to be. Within moments, British soldiers stormed across the bridge before stunned German guards could react. The firefight lasted only minutes. By dawn, the bridge remained firmly in Allied hands. One objective after another was falling, not because everything had gone according to plan, but because determined soldiers kept adapting. Back near St. Miraglise, John Steele finally heard footsteps climbing toward the church tower. A German soldier reached him first. Steele's heart pounded so loudly he feared it could be heard. The German cut the tangled parachute lines. For an instant, Steele believed he was about to be executed. Instead, he crashed painfully onto a nearby rooftop before being captured alive. His war was far from over. As the clock approached 3:30 a.m., scattered gunfire merged into one continuous roar across Normandy. Fires burned in villages. Telephone lines lay severed. Bridges were under Allied control. German commanders struggled to understand what was happening. Yet all of this, all the sacrifice, all the chaos, had been only the opening act. Far out in the English Channel, hidden by darkness beyond the horizon, the largest invasion fleet in human history was now approaching the beaches. And as the first gray light of dawn began touching the sea, thousands of soldiers standing shoulder to shoulder inside landing craft finally caught their first glimpse of France. Some quietly loaded another magazine. Some kissed family photographs one last time. Most simply stared ahead. Because in less than 2 hours, they would have to run directly into hell. June 6, 1944. 5:10 a.m. English Channel approaching Omaha Beach. The sea is anything but calm. Landing craft slam violently against the waves, throwing fully equipped soldiers into one another. Diesel fumes fill the cramped metal compartments. Seawater splashes over the bow, soaking uniforms, rifles, and ammunition. Many men are already seasick. Others grip the cold steel railing so tightly their fingers go numb. No one says much anymore. There is nothing left to say. Private Harold Baumgarten of the U.S. 116th Infantry Regiment reaches into his jacket and touches the small Bible his mother insisted he carry. Around him, faces are pale beneath their camouflage paint. Every soldier knows exactly what waits beyond the steel ramp: machine guns, mortars, artillery. Death. Outside, the darkness begins to fade. A gray horizon slowly reveals an endless armada stretching in every direction. Battleships, destroyers, cruisers, landing ships, thousands upon thousands of vessels moving toward the French coast like an unstoppable tide. Never before had humanity assembled such a force. Ahead, the coastline finally emerges. Steep bluffs rise above narrow strips of sand. Concrete bunkers sit embedded in the cliffs like stone predators. Camouflaged artillery positions overlook every possible landing route. Barbed wire snakes across the beaches. Wooden stakes tipped with mines stand hidden beneath the retreating tide. For the men inside the landing craft, the beach doesn't look like liberation. It looks like a fortress. At 5:30 a.m., the silence ends. The guns of the Allied fleet erupt. 16-inch shells roar overhead from battleships positioned kilometers offshore. The concussion alone rattles windows across southern England. Columns of fire and smoke explode across the cliffs of Normandy as hundreds of naval guns unleash the most intense bombardment many soldiers have ever witnessed. For nearly 40 minutes, the coastline disappears beneath explosions. Some men cheer. Others convince themselves no one could possibly survive that much firepower. Surely the German defenses have been destroyed. But deep inside reinforced concrete bunkers, many German soldiers simply wait. Their walls are more than 2 meters thick. The bombardment is terrifying, yet far less destructive than the attackers' hope. When the shelling stops, many machine guns are still intact. At 6:20 a.m., engineers move ahead in small boats carrying explosives. Their mission is almost suicidal: clear lanes through underwater obstacles before the infantry arrives. German artillery immediately finds the range. Explosions throw boats into the air. Men disappear beneath the waves. Some never resurface. Others struggle toward the beach carrying demolition charges that weigh almost as much as they do. Every second matters. The tide is rising. Soon the obstacles will vanish beneath the water, becoming invisible traps for incoming landing craft. Then, the first assault waves approach. Inside landing craft 1018, 32 American soldiers stand shoulder to shoulder. The coxswain shouts over the engine. 30 seconds. Rifles are checked one final time, helmet straps tightened, bayonets fixed. Someone quietly whispers the Lord's Prayer. Another stares at the floor, unable to look up. The boat grinds against sand. The engine reverses. The front ramp begins to lower instantly. Hell explodes. German MG-42 machine guns open fire with a terrifying mechanical scream. The first line of soldiers is cut down before they can even step into the water. Bullets ricochet off the steel ramp like sparks from a blacksmith's hammer. Men fall backward into their comrades. Blood mixes with seawater. The coxswain is killed. The ramp hangs open. Still the machine guns fire. Those who survive leap into water far deeper than expected. Many sink immediately. Their packs weigh nearly 40 kilograms. Some cannot free themselves before disappearing beneath the waves. Others struggle upward only to be struck by bullets the moment they surface. Within minutes, entire assault waves cease to exist. On Omaha Beach, the carefully planned timetable collapses almost instantly. Units become hopelessly mixed together. Officers are killed before issuing a single order. Radio operators lose their equipment in the surf. Tanks intended to support the infantry never reach shore after rough seas swamp many of their landing craft. The beach becomes a nightmare of smoke, screams, and confusion. Yet amid the chaos, acts of extraordinary courage begin to emerge. Combat medics run repeatedly into open fire to drag wounded men behind obstacles. Navy beachmasters direct incoming landing craft while shells explode around them. Engineers crawl through minefields, cutting wire with shaking hands as machine gun bullets strike inches away. Some know they will not survive. They continue anyway. Near the waterline, Brigadier General Norman Coda lands with the first waves. There is no safe headquarters, no protected command post, only chaos. He watches exhausted soldiers pinned behind a narrow strip of shingle as German fire tears apart anyone attempting to move. If they remain where they are, the invasion will fail. Coda stands, ignoring bullets snapping overhead. He shouts words that many survivors never forget. Rangers, lead the way, the phrase spreads along the beach. Small groups begin moving, not entire companies, not organized battalions, just handfuls of determined men. A lieutenant gathers 6 strangers, a sergeant leads 8 more, a corporal finds 3 engineers. No one waits for perfect orders anymore. They simply move. Using shell craters for cover, they inch forward meter by meter toward the towering cliffs. Some climb using ropes. Others scramble up loose earth with rifles slung across their backs. German defenders fire down from above. Grenades tumble over the edge still. The Americans keep climbing. Elsewhere along the invasion front, the story is very different. At Utah Beach, strong currents accidentally push the first assault nearly 2 kilometers south of its intended landing area. What could have become a disaster instead proves remarkably fortunate. The beaches there are far less heavily defended. Brigadier General Theodore Roosevelt, Jr. surveys the unfamiliar coastline. He doesn't panic. He simply smiles and says, "We'll start the war from right here." His calm decision prevents confusion from spreading through the assault force. Sometimes, history turns on a single sentence. As morning sunlight finally breaks through the clouds, smoke rises across every Normandy beach sword. Juneau, Gold, Utah, Omaha each tells a different story. Some advance rapidly inland. Others remain trapped beneath relentless German fire. High above Omaha Beach, German officers begin reporting something unexpected. Despite impossible casualties, the Americans are still coming, every wave destroyed. Another arrives, every assault broken. Another begins. And deep inside one reinforced bunker overlooking the shoreline, a German machine gunner reloads his weapon once again. Through the smoke, he notices small groups of American soldiers reaching the top of the cliffs. The first Americans who reached the top of the cliffs were exhausted, soaked, and completely disorganized. Most had never trained to fight this way. Their officers were dead or missing. Their units no longer existed. Yet one by one, small groups began pushing inland. There was no master plan anymore, only one simple objective: keep moving. Behind the German defenses, confusion spread rapidly. Telephone lines had been cut by airborne troops during the night. Radio messages conflicted with one another. Reports claimed thousands of paratroopers were attacking from every direction. Commanders struggled to understand where the main assault was unfolding. Valuable hours slipped away as uncertainty replaced confidence. Near Pointe du Hoc, another desperate battle was unfolding. 225 U.S. Army Rangers approached towering cliffs rising nearly 100 feet above the sea. Their mission was one of the most dangerous of the entire invasion. Intelligence believed 6 powerful German 155mm guns hidden on top of those cliffs could devastate both Omaha and Utah Beach. As enemy fire rained down, the Rangers fired grappling hooks attached to ropes toward the cliff face. Some ropes slipped away. Others were cut by German defenders. Men climbed anyway. Their boots searched for tiny cracks in the wet rock while bullets and grenades fell from above. One mistake meant a fatal plunge into the crashing waves below. Captain James Rudder led from the front despite overwhelming resistance. Every meter gained came at the cost of blood. Rangers hauled themselves over the edge and immediately engaged German defenders in brutal close-quarters combat. Rifles gave way to grenades. Grenades gave way to bayonets. The battle became personal. Then came an astonishing discovery. The massive artillery guns weren't there. The concrete emplacements were empty. For a brief moment, the entire mission seemed to have been based on faulty intelligence. But the Rangers refused to stop searching. Moving cautiously through hedgerows and narrow country lanes, a small patrol discovered the missing guns hidden several hundred meters inland beneath camouflage nets. The artillery had been relocated before the invasion. Without hesitation, the Rangers attacked. Using thermite grenades, they destroyed the firing mechanisms of every gun. One by one, the weapons capable of inflicting catastrophic losses on the invasion fleet were permanently disabled. Meanwhile, on Omaha Beach, the impossible slowly became possible. American engineers blasted openings through barbed wire and minefields. Destroyers risked running dangerously close to shore, firing directly into German bunkers with pinpoint accuracy. Every shell that landed gave the trapped infantry another chance to move. General Norman Coda continued walking among the soldiers, refusing to take cover. He pointed toward the bluffs and shouted, "There are two kinds of people staying on this beach. Those who are already dead and those who are going to die. Now let's get the hell off this beach." The word spread like electricity. Men who had spent hours pinned behind obstacles suddenly found the courage to move again. Small assault teams climbed narrow gullies overlooked by machine gun nests. Flamethrowers cleared fortified bunkers. Engineers packed explosives against reinforced concrete. Smoke drifted across the battlefield, reducing visibility and creating brief moments of opportunity. Every bunker captured opened another path. Every path allowed more soldiers to climb. By early afternoon, isolated American units had broken through the German defensive line in several locations. The defenders who had dominated the beaches only hours earlier now found themselves attacked from behind. Across Normandy, British and Canadian forces were advancing steadily from Gold, Juno, and Sword beaches. Their objectives included linking with the airborne divisions that had landed during the night and securing roads leading toward the city of Caen. Resistance remained fierce, but momentum was beginning to shift. Far inland, scattered American paratroopers continued fighting independent battles. Some had spent the entire morning gathering lost soldiers into makeshift units. Others captured crossroads, destroyed bridges, or ambushed German convoys trying to reach the beaches. Though separated by miles, their actions created the same effect. German reinforcements arrived late, too late. The confusion of the night had become the success of the day. Inside German headquarters, commanders urgently requested permission to release powerful panzer divisions held in reserve. But authority rested with Adolf Hitler himself, and Hitler was asleep. His staff hesitated to wake him. Critical hours passed while armored divisions capable of threatening the invasion remained motionless. Those lost hours would become one of the most consequential delays of the entire Second World War. By sunset, the beaches were covered with wrecked landing craft, destroyed vehicles, abandoned equipment, and thousands of casualties. The cost had been staggering. More than 10,000 Allied soldiers had been killed, wounded, or reported missing on D-Day alone. But despite everything, the beachheads held. The Atlantic Wall had been breached. The largest amphibious invasion in human history had succeeded. Yet as exhausted soldiers dug shallow foxholes under the fatting light, few believed the hardest part was over, because beyond the beaches lay the hedgerows of Normandy, and a battle that would consume Europe for almost another year. Beyond the shattered beaches, Normandy revealed a battlefield unlike anything the Allied armies had expected. The map made it look simple: fields, villages, narrow roads, gentle countryside. But the reality was something else entirely. Ancient hedgerows divided every field into natural fortresses. Thick walls of earth, tangled roots, and centuries-old trees blocked visibility in every direction. A soldier could stand less than 20 meters away and remain completely invisible. Every field became its own battlefield. Every hedgerow concealed another ambush. American tanks quickly discovered they couldn't simply drive through these massive earthbanks. When they tried climbing over them, the front of the tank lifted into the air, exposing its vulnerable underside. German anti-tank gunners waited patiently. One shot, one explosion, another Sherman tank burned. Progress slowed to a crawl. For the German defenders, this terrain was a gift. Small squads armed with MG-42 machine guns, mortars, and Panzerfaust anti-tank weapons delayed entire Allied battalions. Every village became a fortress. Every crossroads demanded another fight. The campaign that many believed would last only days was becoming a brutal war of attrition. Meanwhile, deep inside Hitler's headquarters, the Wolf's Lair in East Prussia, the Führer finally awoke. The reports waiting for him were alarming. An invasion was underway. Thousands of Allied troops had landed in Normandy. Yet Hitler remained convinced this was only a diversion. He still believed the real invasion would strike at Pas-de-Calais. Because of that belief, he delayed committing some of Germany's strongest armored divisions. Even as fighting intensified across Normandy, valuable panzer units remained waiting for orders that came far too late. It was a decision that would haunt Germany for the rest of the war. Back in Normandy, Allied engineers worked around the clock. Damaged ports couldn't support an army this large, so the Allies deployed something the world had never seen before: artificial harbors, known as the mulberries. Massive concrete caissons were floated across the English Channel and sunk into position, creating protected harbors where none had existed. Within days, ships unloaded tanks, trucks, fuel, ammunition, food, and reinforcements directly onto the French coast. The invasion was no longer just surviving. It was growing stronger every hour. Above the battlefield, Allied aircraft dominated the skies. Fighters hunted German convoys attempting to reach the front. Bombers attacked railway junctions, bridges, fuel depots, and supply lines across northern France. German reinforcements often traveled only at night. Every destroyed bridge, every bombed railway, every delayed convoy bought more time for the soldiers fighting on the ground. But victory was still far away. Near the town of Carenton, American paratroopers fought one of their hardest battles. The town was the key to linking Utah and Omaha beaches into one continuous front. German Fallschirmjäger, elite paratroopers, defended every street with remarkable determination, house by house, room by room. The battle became a deadly struggle fought at point-blank range. Rifle fire echoed through shattered buildings. Grenades exploded inside narrow alleyways. Smoke covered the streets. When American forces finally secured Carenton after days of relentless fighting, the two beachheads were united. The invasion force could now move supplies, armor, and reinforcements far more efficiently. Yet another obstacle remained: the city of Caen. British and Canadian forces had hoped to capture it on D-Day itself. Instead, fierce German resistance turned Caen into one of the longest and bloodiest battles of the Normandy campaign. Ruined buildings became defensive positions. Every bridge was contested. Every advance came at a terrible cost. As June turned into July, thousands more Allied soldiers arrived from England every single day. What had begun as an invasion was becoming an unstoppable flood of men and machines. The beaches that had once echoed with gunfire now overflowed with endless columns of vehicles stretching toward the horizon: Sherman tanks, jeeps, ambulances, artillery, supply trucks, bulldozers, fuel convoys. An entire army was pouring into France. For Germany, the balance had begun to shift beyond recovery. Every passing day strengthened the Allies. Every passing day weakened the defenders. The longest night had ended, but its consequences were only beginning. The foothold won through unimaginable sacrifice on June 6 became the gateway to the liberation of Western Europe. Less than 3 months later, Paris would be free. Less than a year later, Nazi Germany would surrender unconditionally. The young men who crossed the English Channel that night could not see that future. They saw only smoke, mud, fear. The next hedgerow, and another battle waiting beyond it, yet because they kept moving forward. Even when every instinct told them to stop, the course of history changed forever. Their courage did not end the war in a single day, but it began the final chapter, and the echoes of that longest night can still be heard across the beaches of Normandy today.
Now, the quiet shores of Normandy rest in silence, but the echoes of that day will never be forgotten.